just to introduce a little bit Antonella, who is an inspiration and definitely a role model. After working for over 18 years with the International Committee of the Red Cross as a field-based delegate in different armed conflicts, and as a main spokesperson and head of public communications, Antonella entered the microfinance sector as Director of Corporate Communication at Blue Orchid in Geneva from early 2008 until November 2009. As of January 2010, she's heading the Womanity Foundation, doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Antonella is a founding member of Giving Women, a platform for and on women in philanthropy we should help start in Geneva. She also serves on the board of Win-Win Strategies, a consultancy service which strategically connects the power of business with the deep assets of women's funds and organizations to empower women globally. And that's what Womanity Foundation does. They empower women and girls worldwide. So thank you, and please welcome Antonella.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very aware that I'm standing between you and the cocktail. So, oh, sorry, we need to go back to the beginning. So my presentation is not going to be very long, and we'll have time for questions and interactions. But from where Anna was taking, where's Anna now? I don't even, there she is. From where Anna was in Vevey, and we're now going to take a real time travel and geographical travel as well, because I'm taking you to Afghanistan. And I think the whole purpose of this presentation is for me to show you that how unequal the world is also in this digital world that we live in and that we're working in and that we're having fun in and that we're interacting in, and that a lot of people are not yet digital natives, they're barely literate. And that we really need to invest a lot of our efforts and resources and our solidarity to help those people also reach the privileges and the opportunities that the digital tools and the digital means can give them. So we didn't make our life very easy. We went to Afghanistan and decided that what we wanted to do was invest in girls in Afghanistan, girls' education in Afghanistan. We've been working in Afghanistan since 2007. We started out working in one of the biggest girls' schools in Kabul, which was just being reopened after having been closed by the Taliban for a good decade. There were no women teachers anymore. Girls weren't allowed to go to school. They were just getting back into the school system. And here we are today in Afghanistan. I could just give you a few numbers so you can get the context. Afghanistan has a population of an estimated 32.5 million and the highest fertility rate in Asia. It has 5.3 children per woman. The life expectancy in Afghanistan is 60 years. And the majority of the population, that is 63%, are below 24 years old. You'd say there's a lot of potential, right? With so many under 24-year-olds. The literacy rate in Afghanistan is 38%. That's according to a UNESCO report in 2015. And if you disaggregate that by sex, the literacy rate for men is 52%, and for women it's 24%, right? This is in the day of age that we live, and when we're talking about the digital world and digital natives. The country is probably one of the most dangerous in the world to be born as a woman. It has the worst maternal mortality rate in the world. That's almost 400 deaths to 1,000 births. To 100,000 live births. Almost 400 deaths to 100,000 live births. That's a very high rate worldwide. It has 80% of women experience violence in some form or another in their lifetime. And they have very few opportunities to live outside their family and their home, or to be active outside their family and their home. According to UN Women, women's participation in the labor force was only 19% in 2016, and 60% of girls are still not in school. Okay, so there you go. That's a very grim picture, and it's a big challenge. And I almost felt like I want to throw a challenge also to Anna and to Nestle and to the Dutch. Help us. After you hear this presentation, if you and your teams who have such great ideas and creativity and opportunities, if you have ideas on how to help us with this, we can talk. What we did so far is for several years we worked in the schools in Afghanistan, the public school system, choosing schools for girls because they are separate. They're going to school separately, boys and girls, and investing in the basics, training teachers in their course matters. We had English teachers in these schools that didn't speak English, so we trained them to speak English and to deliver classes in English. We trained them in science, in maths, especially those kind of subjects. We invested a lot in libraries, in science labs, also in sports for girls, because one of the biggest problems, obviously, in a country like that for girls is kind of being themselves, being able to be themselves and express themselves and being self-confident. And sports is a great way to build self-confidence for girls with a lot of limitations. But we still did it. We put in clean water. Most schools didn't have clean water. Girls were getting ill a lot and then stay away from school, and teachers as well. We put in toilets. A lot of the schools didn't have clean toilets, which is less of a problem for boys than it is for girls, especially for adolescent girls. Adolescent girls don't go to school in average 1 week a month if they don't have clean toilets. And that's, of course, a very high rate of absenteeism if they go to school at all. We also worked on communities, putting in parent-teachers associations, student councils, trying to sort the problems that were keeping girls out of school or making the families take them out of school once they were in school. And the objective was really to get the girls to school, keep them in school until 12th grade, and make sure they learned something that was valuable for them and their community. We then came to a point where we figured, okay, we're a small foundation. We really, we don't weigh much if we compare to UNESCO and UNICEF and Save the Children and so forth. Where can we put our weight and our knowledge and our resources where we can really make a difference? And this is where, in our team, we came up with this idea. We said, okay, we're going to propose a very new curriculum to public high schools in Afghanistan. We're going to propose to the Ministry of Education that we teach girls how to code and web develop and do web development. This is not even taught to boys in Afghanistan. And as Taisa said, in many countries it's not taught either, right? It's not taught necessarily. So here we're in this session, we're thinking, okay, we're going to pilot this. We're going to choose a bit of the low-hanging fruit, right? We're going to go into high schools in Kabul, where there are a lot of students and girl students, and we're going to take those girls who have a little bit of English, who are doing fairly well in math, and whose parents agree that they take a coding class. The parents will have to sign a paper where they say, I agree that my girl goes to a coding class, and I will support her with that. The girls will have to go to school for 2 extra hours on top of their usual curriculum every day of the year for the whole school year. And that's, they go to school 6 days a week. So as a total, we were proposing a curriculum of 400 some hours of coding and web development. And then so once we had that together, we went to the Ministry of Education, and I was expecting a very long negotiation and a very hard negotiation, because the Ministry of Education had always told us, you do anything you like, but don't touch the curriculum. The curriculum is ours to control. It took us 15 minutes to get their agreement of the Minister of Education. Nobody is teaching coding in public schools in Afghanistan today. Some private schools do, but who has the means to go to private schools? It's a complicated situation for that. So in 15 minutes, they said, yes, you go. You pilot this, and we want to know how it works. We then contacted an absolutely fabulous NGO. It's called Close the Gap, if you guys know. Close the Gap is a fabulous NGO. I don't remember where they're based, somewhere in Europe. They get computers from companies. You know how computers turnover in companies is like 2 years or 3 years. So they get perfectly good computers. They clean them up. They set them up, and they practically give them to NGOs. And we took, I think the first load were about 80 computers to Afghanistan, and we just again send a load to of 90 computers to Afghanistan. All of it costs us. Each computer costs us something like 300 euros, including transportation costs and all that. So that's really cool. We got a good load of new machines into Afghanistan, and we got them across the border in 1 week. UN organizations have their computers stuck at the border in Kabul for months. We got them across in 1 week, and none of the computers were missing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we kind of felt like, no, we have a thing here. People really want this. We contacted the American University in Kabul and worked with them on a curriculum. Why that? Because they were already teaching computer science to bachelor students, and they agreed to adapt their curriculum, test it with the high school level students, knowing that, of course, it would take a little bit more time and go at a slower pace, take more exercises and so forth. Plus, they helped us identify teachers who were girls who had graduated from their course. And they agreed to supervise the whole course, to kind of have these benchmarks, check in whether it was going well, and adapt the curriculum and so forth. Even at one point last year when we were doing the first pilot, look at what happens. We had one teacher who was like the star teacher. She was really fabulous. She gets run over by a truck. And the next thing we hear, she's in a coma in the hospital, run over by a truck. And what are we going to, I mean, like, poor girl, right? And what are we going to do with this course and so forth? So the university professor from the university in American University in Kabul went and taught the class until the girl was back up on her feet and teaching the class again. So everything, the schools were participating, the parents were participating, the girls are really into it. And we did a full year of this coding class. And what I can say today is, okay, so it was only 40 students in 1 year, 2 different schools, so that we could a little bit compare how it went. The outcomes are that at the end, all these girls were asked to be in groups and do some group exercises. They designed websites for delivery of Afghan pizzas, organizing your wedding the Afghan way, and things like that. But you can actually see. And now, here's the other thing that we try to do then very strongly. And this is where it connects to a reality and where I need to look up the figures. But we got hold of a USAID market research that showed us that, and I know you know the figures worldwide. I know you know these figures, and you've probably gone through them today, that there is a shortage of medium and high-skilled workers globally, that STEM-related jobs are growing very quickly, and that they pay much more than the normal jobs. Now, in Afghanistan, this all gets accentuated even more. The Afghan market, the fastest growing job market in Afghanistan, is anything related to data management, web development, coding, app development, or anything that is in that digital basket, if you like. That's the fastest growing job market in Afghanistan. Which it makes sense. Everybody needs to work on this. The government, the UN organizations, the businesses, the big NGOs, you name it, everybody will need people who are competent in this field. But they are very, very quickly hitting a problem in resources. Because obviously nobody is going to immigrate into Afghanistan, or not many people are going to migrate into Afghanistan to work for companies there. Very few people do that. It's not a country that attracts a lot of migration. So what we figured was where we could really put our energy and our resources was to prove that you can, in a context like Afghanistan, teach girls how to code, that you can teach them not only how to code, because the problem then is also you want to link them to a job market. So what are you doing in your coding class? You're going to teach them how to problem solve. You're going to teach them how to teamwork, You're going to teach them how to address complex problems. Do you know how science is taught still in Afghanistan in most schools today? Is girls and kids in general, not just the girls, children in general, they have to repeat after the teacher. They repeat. They recite. I've been in classrooms and I've seen them. They actually even have the movement of the recitation like this. They learn by heart. They don't learn how to problem solve. They don't learn how to be creative about addressing a situation. And we're not just teaching them how to you all know that when we're learning this kind of skills like coding and web development and this kind of creative and difficult skills, you also learn how to think creatively, how to work with others, how to interact in terms to solve complex problems. So we want to show that, and then what we're doing with these students is we're actually connecting them to the job market. So we're teaching them how to do job interviews, how to apply for an internship, how to think about their future, how to formulate their aspirations. Of the 40 students that we had last year, you can see a breakdown here of how many are. The two main tracks for these students will be further academic careers or entry into the job market. Entry into the job market, their skills are probably not competitive enough, although maybe for more simple jobs, yes. But obviously they will be better prepared to enter into academic studies and pursue their career. But we're also encouraging them to get some kind of job exposure. And we've been now talking with a whole range of companies and organizations and institutions in Afghanistan to encourage them to take girls on as interns. Even a short job experience or job exposure. And we're also bringing women who are professional women in Afghanistan into the classrooms to talk to the girls and tell them about what they can actually do. See, here is one of the problems when you're dealing with women in that kind of a context, is they don't have many role models. They don't actually see their mothers, sisters, aunts, and friends out there in the professional world. It's very rare still, and it's still something that can be largely taboo. But we figured, and I think we can really see that already happening elsewhere, that this is the kind of job where a woman can actually even work in a very safe space. If that's the requirement culturally, that the woman be not too exposed in public, then these kinds of jobs of coding and web development, data management and so forth, are jobs where the woman does not necessarily need to be super exposed and visible to everybody, but she's not weaving a carpet in some room in a house with somebody who comes and delivers the wool and then comes and gets the carpet, and she has no clue of the value of the work that she's produced, right? Because when she is doing this kind of work, she is going to connect to the rest of the world. And at some point, she is going to understand what the value of her work is. And that's going to liberate her as well and make her able to contribute in a stronger way. We are doing an external evaluation right now. It's not quite finished yet, but we were getting some feedback, and I think the important feedback is that we realize we need to build the pipeline of students that are able to actually go through those 400 hours of coding and web development. And what I mean by that is we need girls who have a minimum of English and some good basis of math. So we're actually going to build it, increase the program, and start in 10th grade with basic computer literacy. 11th grade, English first, English, basic English, understanding, good English, basic computer literacy in 11th grade, and then 12th grade, put them through the coding and web development, so that we can kind of build a pipeline of girls who can do it. But we can increase this program pretty quickly, and I think this year, I can't even remember. My colleagues are already looking at doing the program in 4 schools with several hundred kids. And this is what we're trying to do. And I think the objective is not that we then teach all girls in Afghanistan how to code and do web development and these things. The objective is to show that this can be done, And it doesn't actually require that huge of an effort. It's not that costly, but it can be done. And it will bring a big benefit to the girls, but also to their communities, to their families, and to their wider communities. And then the government can scale it. The bilateral funders can scale it. They can teach to boys too, by the way. Now, we started with the girls because that's our thing. But it's not a course that is reserved to girls. It can go very well to boys as well. So this is where we're at. And this is where I'm happy to open it to questions from you.
Okay, I'm all emotional. Kelly and I are like, oh my God, let's, keep our tears here. I was not expecting all this, so much passion and everything. What a way to end this day. Okay, I'm not crying. That was wonderful. Now we can have questions to Antonella. I'm sure you have so much inspiration. Hopefully Nestle and all the companies still here. I'm going to be supporting Womanity Foundation because it's such a wonderful job you're doing all around the world. Thank you.
Hello, Fatima Benchad. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
How can we actually help you and support the foundation?
Yeah. Well, obviously, one easy way, but it's not always the most interesting, is you can give money to the foundation, obviously. And maybe one interesting thing for you to know is that when you give money to the foundation, all the overheads of the foundation are covered by the funder and his companies, so the money that you actually give goes to the programs. But here are some other ways that people have helped. We've actually interacted with a company in Texas, of all places, last year, where they decided that their women, this is a digital company, they do, Dialexa is their name, I don't know if you know them, and they decided to do 2 or 3 different things. They actually recorded videos of their women professionals in this coding, app development and so forth. They did small videos in very simple English, and we then showed them in the classrooms in Afghanistan, because this is also a way to create aspirations for the girls. I think it would be interesting also to have some mentors for the teachers who are teaching the coding and web development class. And there's always a teacher and an assistant teacher in the classroom. And these are young women. They're not that far ahead of the students that they have. And they're brilliant, but it's usually their first exposure or maybe their second year of teaching. And it could be really interesting if people are interested to do a mentorship agreement. So, but obviously that's a few people who would do that. Some people have, again, this Dialexa and other people have started a crowdfunding campaign for this. And I think the interesting thing, as you know, about crowdfunding campaigns is not just that you get funds, but that you really increase visibility. And why is it important to increase visibility about this? I come back to my main point. It's unfair that so many boys and girls in so many places in the world are growing up without even knowing how to read and write and count, when we're talking about what we need to know to cope with the 21st century. So can we raise the knowledge and visibility about this divide that that is actually still increasing at the moment, and try and see if people can participate in bridging it. You can probably even think of other ways of helping. Maybe you have ideas of, there are companies working in Afghanistan. If you know of any, we're looking for companies to take interns and give the girls job exposure. Or international organizations working in Afghanistan who would be willing to give job exposure. We are convinced that there is actually going to be a lot of demand for these kinds of, for the girls who have these skills, because a lot of these organizations, their policies push for gender equality, but at least some move towards gender equality. And they don't know how to employ girls in Afghanistan because girls in Afghanistan just don't have those skills for the employment. So if you have any connections with potential employers in Afghanistan, then that's a really interesting avenue also to help. I left you speechless.
Hello, what a fabulous job you're doing. Really great.
Thank you.
So two topics. One is English, you mentioned, and
Yep.
second is job market. Would those females be able to provide services for
Yes.
an external company? Does it
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
Afghanistan-based?
Yeah. Yeah.
One, and two, I mean, we all speak English. Would it
Yeah.
be of interest to actually provide some sort of over internet, if possible,
Coaching or
coaching,
training.
basic English to actually give them first the
Yeah.
tool for communication.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we are opening their eyes to external worlds. So
Yeah.
we are opening their hunger for
Exactly.
jobs outside of Afghanistan,
Yeah.
maybe.
And I can tell you, once you get in touch with these girls, they open your eyes to some kind of a world. What you get back is really quite amazing. Okay, we've had these ideas, and I'd say we'd love to explore them. We're a little bit careful at the moment because everybody is watching us on how much are we connecting these girls with the rest of the world, which Afghanistan doesn't necessarily regard as friendly, they're very suspicious of the West. It would almost be easier to mentor girls in Afghanistan from Iran or Pakistan or India, rather than taking them into the West, because they are so protective of their girls on how they. And so protective of what they call the honor of their girls and their families. So there's a huge fear that this is kind of an avenue to then debauchery, right? They will connect to all this wild stuff. In fact, to tell you the truth, a lot of this coding and web development is happening offline. It's not happening online, because a lot of the schools have very limited internet connection. And so, that even makes it more difficult. They have to kind of train, and then all of a sudden they can go online. But I think at some point it will become really interesting. My feeling is we should let it mature a little bit more, that this could actually become something that Afghanistan can propose as a value to the world. We have experienced coders, web developers, or we have people who can actually work in this field from Afghanistan towards the outside. They wouldn't be the first country to do that. At this point, I think it's still quite touchy. As I said, we actually require each of the girls that signs up for our class that the parents sign off, that they agree, that she's there and they support it. And many parents won't. Even if the girl has their potential, they won't. So we're kind of managing that line. So for the moment, we're concentrating on the Afghan market, which is still a very huge, there's still a huge potential for jobs in that market, and then on your sort of cross, sort of contacting them and mentoring them and tutoring them. My feeling would be it would be easier to do with people in the Middle East, Iran, Persia, in the area there, than with the West. That's my feeling. Yes?
Do you have a program in place to actually engage with the male family members of those girls,
Yes.
to bring them on board and make them become part and become truly supportive of those amazing young ladies?
There is no way around the males in Afghanistan in any way. There is no way. When you ask an Afghan girl who is in the class and coding and has aspirations and says, I'm going to go to university and all doing these things. And you ask her, who is the person who is your biggest supporter in this? It's always the father. If the father is not with her, she is not going anywhere. Now, in the back, in the bedroom or in the kitchen, the mother, the father, they sort their thing out, and there are things that are happening there that we don't know. But there is no way around the males in Afghan societies if you want to work with the girls. And so we do, of course, parents-teachers associations, you know, what the things we do in the communities and in the schools to try and overcome, discuss the problems, solve the problems, overcome the problems. Our program manager in Afghanistan is a man, the program director. His team is all female, but he's and he's extremely, I mean, look at the courage it takes. This guy comes from Wardah, which is a place in Afghanistan. He can't go back to his village because in his village they found out that he's working for girls' education, and they told him, you come back here and you die. Right? So, but okay, he knows. He knows that this is the future of his country. It's what he wants to do. He lives there with his family in Kabul, and that's it. And he invests in this, and he's very proud of it. When you talk to him, he's very proud of this. But there is no way around the men. And the men are increasingly becoming aware that an uneducated woman is a burden. She's a burden. She can't even go to the market. She doesn't know how to count and write or negotiate. She can't answer the telephone. She can't, you know, an uneducated woman, her children are less healthy. They just become a burden to the family and the community. So more and more men are actually moving families, entire families, from the areas that are still much controlled by groups that don't favor girls' education into Kabul. Because that's where girls can go to school, have a better opportunity to go to school and get an education. And that's still the reality of a lot of places in Afghanistan. But Afghanistan is a complex composition. It's not just one thing. And that sometimes is a bit sad to see what we hear about Afghanistan. It's just like as if it were one reality and it's just all one bad place and everything. People live in Afghanistan. They're very creative. They're extremely resilient. They're superb business people. They've survived through conflicts. They ran in and out the country. They have, they know how to run a credit card system without banks. I don't know how they do it, but apparently somebody writes something on a slip. They go with the trucks across the pass, and then the guy and the credit system works without functioning banks sometimes. So
we have one last question from Alessia. Yeah. She earned it because she was like the mic holder for the whole day. And just before you ask your question and you answer, please go and check the website, because we're only talking today about Afghanistan, but there are so many great programs you are managing worldwide, India, Brazil, Morocco. So many programs around, so please have a look and try and support either with your ideas, your money, your anything. I mean, really a big fan of yours.
Yeah. Don't overwhelm us with requests for just a small team in Switzerland, but give us your ideas and we'll manage. Yeah.
Hi. My question would be about the sustainability of the program, financial sustainability. So if it is a foundation, where does your money come from? And if you envision it becoming sustainable, if it is not right now, and it connects with where you envision the program to go. I guess Tez's just answered a bit. So you are around some countries. So I just wanted to know what's up. What's happening in the future?
Yes. Okay. For the moment, we decided to concentrate on Afghanistan because that's where we have a track record, right? We've worked in 15 schools. We know the Ministry of Education. We've been around the block. They know us. We know them. It's a good context to try these kinds of things. But yes, we've had requests from Pakistan already. But maybe what would work in order to replicate elsewhere is for us to really do this 2-year pilot with evaluation, make sure we have a good model in place, and then just franchise it. Somebody else can run it in Pakistan or in other places, right? Because we would have developed the curriculum, we would have pointed out where the difficult parts are and how it works and how you connect to the job market and so forth. You would have to probably tweak it anyway in any context, because any context is specific, but you could probably depart from that basis. In terms of sustainability, our vision is this. We'll see how it works. It's still a bit early stage, but our vision is this. We want to develop a model where we can show it works. What our indicators that it works is the girls successfully complete the program, and there are, of course, benchmarks to the program and what they can do at the end of the program, and we test that and grade it, and voilà. So they successfully complete the program. And we are able, for at least a good quarter of these girls, to connect them to the job market, or to make sure they access university. It's an entry exam in Afghanistan. It's a long, complicated history, but it's not that easy to get into university in Afghanistan. And so it's a competition system with grades and stuff like that. So those are our benchmarks. If we succeed that, we hold a model. And I think with that model, what we should do, because we're not going to scale it ourselves, is to go to the Ministry of Education and see if they're willing to run it countrywide, or at least in the cities, or at least start scaling it out like that. But obviously the Ministry of Education is going to say, and where's the funding coming from? Well, how is the Ministry of Education funded today in Afghanistan? There's not much of an income tax system, I don't think, in Afghanistan. I don't know how they do that. But there's still a lot of bilateral funding from countries, Scandinavians, the British, the French, and so forth. This is the kind of program that bilateral funders could be interested in. I think also that companies in Afghanistan would be willing to fund this kind of training in public schools. Because at the end result is investing in a future job force, right? So if they see that, I think there could be really interesting avenues for funding the extension of the program from government, bilateral funding, development funding it is basically, and also private funding. But that's kind of the vision. And we would not scale it necessarily ourselves. We could retain some kind of expertise in it, you know, to check that it's being implemented at the level that we think is effective, but not scale it up ourselves.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Big round of applause
for you.
Thank you.